The James Show Podcast.
It would be very hard to find a worse take on the U.S., Israel, Iran triangle than what was heard on The View yesterday. There's going to be two main voices here. Whoopi Goldberg, who you will recognize, and then there's Alyssa Farah, who is kind of the conservative on the table, but she's incredibly moderate. She's really just a moderate Democrat. And then you'll hear Sunny Hostin pop up in there. And they're trying to make the case that being black in America is just as bad, is just as oppressive as living under the Ayatollahs in Iran. I'm not making this up. In fact, I have stretched it out from about 15 extra seconds from where most people are starting this soundbite and about 15 extra seconds at the end of it, because the full context is even better.
And that's why I am saying that it is the same. Murdering someone for their difference is not good, whoever does it. It's not good. So that's why I said you weren't saying what I heard was not what you meant.
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
Guys, don't vote for Iran. Do not anyone at this table should vote for Iran.
Let me tell you about being in this country. This is the greatest country in the world. But, yeah, I know that. And we all know that. But every day, we are worried. Do we have to be worried about our kids? Are our kids going to get shot because they're running through somebody's neighborhood? They are not big deals, and I don't mean to say they're not big deals to you, because that's not
women,
what I meant.
And they are not doing well there either. They are not doing well in Iran. They are not educated. They cannot have property. They cannot leave States.
I'm talking about here.
Nobody wants to diminish the very real problems we have in this country. That is no one's intent. But I think it's important we remember there are places much darker than this country and people who deserve rights.
Not everybody feels that way. Not everybody feels that way. Listen, I'm sorry. You know, when you think about the fact that we got the vote in 1965.
Okay, they don't have free and fair elections in Iran. It's not even the same universe.
They can't go out of their house. The women.
You know what? There's no way I can make you understand.
Let me try something. It's like try to reverse roles with a black person in this country, let's say, because I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Just try to understand from their point of view. From that point of view, this country does not do them well. Does not go for them.
I completely acknowledge that.
And we shouldn't compare atrocities.
If you're talking about Iran, of course, is doing worse things. But relatively speaking, it feels bad.
But I think you know that Iran is significantly worse.
Oh, my God. That's all I can take of that. Isn't that just fantastic? Go to Iran. Whoopi has the money. Go to Iran, smart aleck. Go ahead. Do a little, why don't you do a few episodes of The View from over there? Y'all can be on location like you do sometimes. Go to Tehran. Go try and run around without a headscarf on. Try and run around without male relatives in public. Try and vote. Well, they have elections in Iran. No, they don't. I mean, they let you vote. But the Ayatollahs get to pick the candidates. And if they don't like the candidates, they can veto. They can strike any candidate off the ballot. So, no, you don't have open, free, and fair elections. But their worldview is what's being exposed here. Their worldview is that America is not great. And at that time, she's like, I know, this is the greatest country in the world. And when people started clapping, she's like, yeah, it's the greatest country in the world. You just don't want people to clap for it. It's the greatest country in the world, but we oppress blacks just as bad as Iran oppresses their citizens. They're contradicting themselves constantly, over and over and over. But she must not know what she's talking about. And it's so fun to see because her worldview, it doesn't need any level of depth of thought. And it's not even that she really thinks America is better than Iran. She doesn't think Iran's better than America. She's a moral relativist. She thinks it's discriminatory to say one country is better than the other, to say one culture or one way of life or one civilization is better or worse than the other. She's a moral relativist. And the funny part that you probably recognize just by her saying this is hilarious because she, as a woman and a woman of color, which is minority status, imagine being a woman and part of a minority group in Iran. Would you be able to speak freely on your TV show? Would you even have a TV show? Would they let you say, dissenting views about the Ayatollahs? Would you be able to go on there and like 5 times a week say the Ayatollah is literally Hitler without something terrible happening to you? Oh my God, no. It was recent. The story of Mahsa Amini was being thrown around social media. I think this just happened not this year. Wasn't that this year? There was a Kurdish woman in Iran, and she was not wearing a hijab in public. This is an act of protest in Iran. This is an act of bold defiance in Iran, leaving your house with your head uncovered. The morality police snatched her up, beat her. She ended up dying from her wounds. I don't know if they intentionally killed her, but it is a murder. Does that happen in America? Does a legal citizen female, just because she's not wearing a headscarf, get pulled to the side and beat to death and murdered and nothing happens to the cops? She's so far off base. It's almost like she's saying, yeah, I got this cup of water, but it's the driest water you've ever seen. Like, it's not even possible for anybody who knows anything about the situation to think that that's correct. But she had Sunny Hostin backing her up. She had Joy Behar kind of running interference. I don't know if she was necessarily agreeing. Joy Behar, isn't she Jewish? Kind of saying, yeah, you might want to tap the brakes there, but I get your larger point. No, there is no larger point. Iran is far more oppressive to all of their citizens and it compared to black Americans as it stands right now. The very fact that she can say that on TV is proof that she's not as oppressed here as she would be if she was in Iraq. But here they are. They can't stop taking other people's side first. It's never America first with these people. They'll side with the illegals that are trying to live here illegally and not be deported. They'll side with the Iranians over the Americans. They'll side with the criminals here in America, even in our internecine societal struggles. They'll side with the ones that are more destructive versus productive. Good job, Whoopi Goldberg. Good job showing the world how little you actually know about what goes on outside of your... Dude, and what is she making? Like $5 million a year? Please, somebody come oppress me that hard. The lengths people will go to beclown themselves, to run this moral relativism that America isn't so great. You know, a lot of people don't like the slogan, make America great again, for 2 reasons. They don't think America ever was great, and they don't think America ever will be great. And if you're a moral relativist, this is so useful if you're of below average intelligence. Do you know what I mean when I say a moral relativist? Does everyone kind of understand that world? Do you know what I'm talking about? Garrett, are you even paying attention? Do you know what a moral relativist is? Maybe I need to explain it because I'm using Evan Sayet's language. He's a regular guest, and he says it so much better in his book, Kindergarten of Eden. But a moral relativist is someone who doesn't want to really think too deeply about things. So when they're asked, they always go for the balance. What country's better, Iran or Iraq? Well, no country's necessarily better than the other. No one has a monopoly on right and wrong and good and bad. And, some countries have their flaws and some other countries have other flaws. And it all kind of evens out in the middle. And it sounds really nice when you're talking about some subjects. Like if you're talking about skin tone, that moral relativism actually works. It's fantastic. Where you say, yeah, there's some good people that are this skin tone, and there's some bad people that are that skin tone. And for other skin tones, same. They've got good and bad, and no one really has monopoly on the truth or good or bad or right or wrong. But when it comes to things that actually matter, like culture, like the way you structure your society, your system of governance, well, that absolutely has different results. Capitalism has shown, it's crystal clear throughout the 20th century, that capitalism is a better way to arrange your economics than socialism. Period, point blank, end of story. There is no moral relativism there. And the further you go down the socialism hole, the worse it gets. And so you can say, well, there were, it's unfortunate, there were a bunch of communist countries that had famines and breadlines in the middle of the 20th century, and that wasn't a thing in capitalist countries. But, overall, they're about the same. No, they're not. No, they're not. We've also learned, on the micro level in society, the moral relativism doesn't work out. Murphy Brown told you, yeah, having a kid out of wedlock, just being a single mom, that's just as good as having a parent. You don't need a man in your life. And now that we've had an entire generation, almost 2 generations of data to look at, we can tell that raising a kid in the household with his biological mother and father, on average, is a superior way. It gets better results than single parenthood. So this is what's behind what this whole thing. Whoopi cannot just admit that America is better than Iran, that American culture and American society is better than Iran. Remember, her worldview is that America's evil. And to be fair, she doesn't think like America's worse than Iran. She just thinks, we're all about the same. Moral relativism. So let's go revisit this clip here from The View, because if you hadn't seen this on your social media already, this is floating.
So that's why I said you weren't saying what I heard was not what you meant.
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
Guys, don't go to Tehran. Do not, no one at this table should go to Tehran.
Let me tell you about being in this country. This is the greatest country in the world. But, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, don't clap.
And we all know that. But every day, we are worried.
All right, so listen, right there when she said America's the greatest country in the world, she said it while rolling her eyes. And when Barack Obama was asked this was the great example here. Barack Obama was asked that in the presidential election cycle of 2008. Do you think America's the greatest country in the world? And he's like, well, yeah, I think it's the greatest country in the world. Just like people in Germany think Germany's the best country in the world, and people in the UK think UK's the best country in the world. So he doesn't really think it's the best country in the world. He's just like, yeah, I cheer for the team of the jersey I'm wearing, but I don't really think we're better or worse than other countries. That's what's behind that. It's not even necessarily antipathy toward America itself, but when you have the pre-existing worldview that no society or system of governance or culture is better or worse than the other, then how do you explain the severe oppression that the Iranians live under, especially female Iranians, especially female minority Iranians? And does she know? Yes, she knows that she can walk outside without a head covering and be okay. She knows that she can go out in public without male relatives and be okay. She knows that she could run for office. She knows that she can own property and vote. So how does she answer? How does she solve the cognitive dissonance in her head that, well, clearly America allows more freedom and it's not nearly as oppressive as Iran? Well, the race card was her out on this. Yeah, well, we used to hang blacks. Well, we didn't. The Democrat Party and their supporters did, but there was a giant group of American society from the beginning, all the way up through the Civil War and beyond, that fought against this tooth and nail. White people even that fought against this tooth and nail. They're called Republicans. Oh, so she has. You realize she has to cling on to this because she would have to admit that her entire worldview is crumbled, and maybe some systems of governance, some societies, some ways of life are better than others. There's been a big push for Made in America. It's always sounded good. It's been, now that we're in a little bit of tariff turmoil, is that really still a good idea? In fact, what are American companies saying? Let's ask Michelle Schultz, my next guest from Scholl Trade Law, PLLC. Welcome back to the James Show, Michelle.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So before we get into any sort of level of detail here, where are we at with the tariffs? Are they still paused? Is there some still on? Is there some super high ones that just aren't getting news anymore? What was the lay of the land look like?
Yeah, they're still on in whole and in part. There's still some super high ones in place. They're just not the focus of the news right now. So the Court of International Trade had determined that the president didn't have the authority to issue certain tariffs, but there has been a stay implemented, which means we still have the tariffs until the appeals court decides on the merits of the case. So the aluminum and steel tariffs, they're still there. A lot of the reciprocal tariffs are still there. There are a few nuances, and the tariffs with China have gotten a little bit lower, but there are still several different types of tariffs that are stacking on top of each other, and no one's really looking at it right now in the news, although the companies are looking at it.
Well, I have been disappointed in how hard it is for me, myself, to define what it means to be made in America. Because it sounds easy. Yeah, it has to be assembled here. But I saw the example last year of a TV that was made in America, but all the components were made overseas, and they were just assembled at the very final step. They plugged in the sort of motherboard into the actual screen, and then some guy took a little drill and like stuck it in the back, snapped it in the back, and then drilled the cover over, and that was it. So how does that count as made in America? The actual screen itself, the frame, it was all assembled with the base and the packaging, and everything else was made overseas. And just one little part with one little motherboard being plugged in and then screwed in the back. I mean, what does it mean to be made in America, Michelle?
That is a great question, and we get that a lot. In fact, we've been through entire multi-year investigations with Customs, where Customs is investigating whether a Made in America claim is valid or not. And that one that you just brought up, gosh, that might be one they would question, because to be made in America, it needs to be all or substantially all made in America. And under the customs regulations, it essentially means where did the last substantial transformation occur? So if it was wheels and chain,
this is what happens.
Aluminum,
sorry to interrupt, but this is what happens when I try and figure out what I even think this means is, substantial transformation. Now I got to figure out what that means.
Exactly. Yeah. So to put that in layman's terms, when did it go from being one thing to being another thing? When did it go from being a pile of rocks to being a really refined chemical? I mean, it's like, and it's all laid out in the tariff code. So you really have to do a technical review of, did it change its entire character from one tariff code, one item, to another tariff code, another item?
All right, we're talking with Michelle Schultz from Schultz Trade Law. SchultzTradeLaw.com is her website. And I have the same kind of feeling when I think the last list I saw was which cars are most American. And it turns out that 0% of cars are 100% American. So then we just have to do this sliding scale where it's like, well, depending on how you measure it, it could be the Tesla. It could be, I believe, didn't Toyota win out of the conventional cars? I don't even remember the list. But it just seems sort of disappointing. Like, there's no such thing as a 100% American car, but there's really no such thing as a 100% any country car.
Yeah, exactly. Because we see parts and components coming from everywhere. Cars have materials like steel and aluminum that are not currently coming from the U.S. They're going to be coming in at 50% until we get our own steel infrastructure going. We've got components that were coming from China as rare earth metals, and you pretty much can't get them from anywhere else. And those go into cars. So it's crazy to think about that all the different parts of cars come from different places.
Well, I think a lot of us have seen the old Milton Friedman bit about the pencil and how, like, even when you take something like a pencil, it's just worth a few cents. It's not anything valuable or complex. But it takes people from all over the world. The rubber comes from Malaysia. The brass was probably mined in, like, Turkey. The wood comes from the Cascades up in the hinterlands of Washington. The graphite for the lead comes from China or something like that. And, it's all assembled from inputs from all over the world. And we're just talking about a pencil.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be surprised. I mean, we've seen Made in America claims made on clothing. If you walk around any department store and you start looking at labels, some of it says Made in America of Vietnamese yarn. I mean, you just you're gonna have to really be careful about what you put as Made in America, because false claims would be illegal.
All right. Well, Michelle Schultz, stick with the James Show, because I know we're going to get some more tariff news coming up eventually, and I'd like to have you back on for that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, James. Talk with you soon.
All right. That's Michelle Schultz. You can find her website, SchultzTradeLaw.com. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.